y'all. Welcome to Art Loves Fashion. I'm your host, Cheryl I'm an image consultant, professional developer, art curator and collector, a wife and a mom. This show, Art Loves Fashion, is about, you guessed it, art, love, and fashion. We'll be meeting new people, trying interesting things, and hopefully learning something new. Sounds kind of vague, right? That's because I want you to join me on Sundays at 5 o'clock as we take a journey of all things creative and beautiful with art, loves, fashion. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday and welcome to another edition of Art Loves Fashion. I am your host, Irving, and happy hot Saturday. I hope you all had a great week. Today I have a very special guest, which I'll be bringing up in a few minutes. I usually like to start off the show with my guest, but today I'm going to switch it up just a little bit because I want to make sure that I am doing this in, I think, the correct order. I'm going to start off with our love segment today, and I want to pay homage to the Honorable John Lewis. And I didn't post on my Instagram all week about John Lewis, and I kind of kept thinking about what did I want to say, and what were my feelings around witnessing this moment and watching a true civil rights icon transition. And the thing that, as I kept thinking about it, the thing that I arrived on was about love. And I was doing some research, and by this time, I think that everyone probably either has reinforced the things that they knew about John Lewis or have learned some things about John Lewis throughout all the press and all of the news and spreading of information and honoring him. I did a little bit more reading out because I realized I didn't know as much about him as I should. And so I wanted to do a little bit more reading and research. And the thing that struck me was that John Lewis started in this civil rights movement when he was only 15. He started out preaching, and it says he was spreading the social gospel. And what that meant was, this was what Martin Luther King was saying, was that he was not only concerned with salvation of souls, but also concerned with bodies as well. And John Lewis was inspired by that and began preaching at 15 and spreading the social gospel. And so he started at 15. Then when he was 18, he wanted to transfer to Troy University, which was an all-white college near to his home. So he traveled to Montgomery, Alabama to meet with Martin Luther King to try to get Martin Luther King to help him sue. But he wound up changing his mind because his parents were not necessarily, they didn't want to do it. So he honored their wishes. But then at 20 years old, he began to participate in the sit-ins in Nashville, Tennessee. Also in 1960, at the age of 20 years old, he was one of the founders of SNCC. And then 1 year later, he started on the Freedom Rides. And what I didn't know, I did watch the documentary about Marion Barry, but what I didn't know was that Marion Barry was the first chairman of SNCC. So I imagine that Marion Barry and John Lewis had a very good relationship as it relates to their work with civil rights movement and all of that. But I was like, 15 years old, you decide you want to dedicate your life to the civil rights movement. You decide that you want to, you want to dedicate your life to the cause of Black people, for humanity, for the betterment of this country. And I was like, that really has to be about love. Martin Luther King talked about it all the time, but like it really just struck me because I think about my child as an 18-year-old, soon to be 19-year-old, or I think about myself, like I was just trying to figure out me and trying to figure out my friends and whatever relationship or boyfriend and girlfriends or going away to school and or whatever, getting a job. Those were the things that was preoccupying my mind. And at 15 to decide that you're going to dedicate your life to the betterment of Black people in this country is amazing to me. So I was a couple of weeks ago, I had done a series around agape love. And agape love, we a lot of times associate with Christianity and Christ's unconditional love for humanity. Regardless of whatever you get coming in, you are still giving love out. But then, so I was like, clearly that's an example of that. But then I also came across, they talk about some places you read, it talks about 4 different kinds of loves. If you read a little bit further, you may find up to 7 to 8 different kinds of love. But the other kind of love that I learned about in doing this research, and I've heard of it before, but is Philia love. And that's where the city of Philadelphia comes from. But just this love of your fellow man, of loving someone as if they are your brother. And I think that as he passes on and passes the torch, we not only have had an opportunity to witness someone who dedicated their lives to this struggle, but like also thinking about what do we really know about love and what are we really doing in the name of love, outside of what we're doing in our own homes or what we're doing with our own family members. How are we actually, if we're going to honor our civil rights icons, what is it that our takeaway is? And for me, that takeaway was like, what are the real deeper levels of love and what are the real true meanings of love and how do you actually live out love as an action word beyond the people who you live with? And so I just wanted to take a minute to just, I will be remiss if I did not take a minute to honor John Lewis, his contributions, and figure out what is it that we can take away, because we can't stand back and watch our leaders do the work as if we're watching a movie or like just being the recipient of all their work. We have to figure out what is it that we should be doing or learning or contributing based off of the example that they've set for us. So if you don't know what to do, figure out how to love more, right? And I think the other piece that I wrote down was that challenged me was that it talked about when we are thinking about those who we perceive to be our enemies, thinking about how do we figure out their perspective and how do we figure out that how do we get past assuming that their actions are purely motivated by hate on their side. Like, what is their motivation? So that challenged me because in this aspect of love, in this aspect of agape love, like we have to challenge ourselves to figure out what is the common interest? What are the things that are similar between us and who we may perceive to be our enemy? So that perhaps we can have that much more of an impact when we do our work. That's not to say that we're not going to do our work. That's not to say we're not going to continue to advocate and stand up for what we know to be right, but we're doing it not out of a reaction of hate, but out of a reaction of love and trying to find the connection. So again, That challenged me. I got to think about that this week. And I challenge everybody else to figure out what is that deeper level of love that you are putting into practice beyond your own intimate circle of family or friends. And so that's it. Rest in peace, John Lewis. Rest in power, John Lewis. And that's it for my love segment. So we're going to transition super quickly because we got started a little bit late today. We're going to transition super quickly. And I am honored to introduce my guest to the audience. If you are a Washington, D.C. native or have been here for long enough, you may know who she is. Her name is Cheryl Lofton of Cheryl Lofton and Associates. I want to make sure I say that right. I want to bring her onto the screen so that she can come and I asked her to come on today. Cheryl's title is, would you say, Cheryl, that you are a tailoress, or would you say that you're a tailor? Or is there a difference? And we're having some technical difficulty, so I may have to repeat myself. I was saying, is your title tailor or tailoress?
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, that was a very beautiful tribute. I totally appreciate that. So, a little bit about me. I am a third-generation tailor. I'm a native Washingtonian, born here, educated here from kindergarten straight through college. So my grandfather started this tailoring business in 1939, and I got involved in 1981.
Wow.
So that's a little bit about me. I've been doing this for more than 40 years now, and I could not have picked a better profession at all.
Cheryl, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I missed a little bit of what you were saying. You said your grandfather started this business in 1939?
That's correct, 1939, right here in Washington, D.C.
Wow. And so then, so this is a family business? How many people are involved in doing tailoring?
How many people involved in my business?
Or just because if your grandfather, you have siblings, right?
I do have siblings. I have only one living sibling now, right? He lives in Atlanta, and he also does have a tailor shop in Atlanta. Now, what I do have is a cousin here in D.C. who also has a tailor shop, really actually just less than 3 blocks from where my business is. My cousin has a shop there as well. So it's deeply embedded, profession in our family. Almost everybody in my family learned tailoring. It was just part of a rite of passage in our family. Everyone had to go through the tailoring shop during the summers when everybody else was playing. We had to learn tailoring.
Oh, that actually was going to be my next question. How did you learn? So basically, that was just part of what you, before you go playing or before you go doing something else, you need to come over here and help
Absolutely.
out and get this lesson.
Learn the business, right? No bike riding, no jump rope, none of that. Learn the business first and then play later.
Okay. And you know what? I feel you on that. I had a great aunt who she wasn't a tailor. And I don't know what she would call herself. She could sew really well. A seamstress. I don't know if there's a technical difference. I'm sure there is. But when we were young, when I was small, she made me learn how to sew. And my sewing skills are basic. I can take care of what I need to take care of. But she was very much the same way. She worked in, when I was young, this is when the casinos first came to Atlantic City. And she worked in the Playboy Club as the person who would sew up all the Playboy bunny costumes. But back then,
Taylor... the difference between seamstress and tailor, just that much of a difference. I call myself a tailoress. It was a girl power move for me because everybody in the business before me was a male in my family. I was the first female to take over the business. And so, I wanted to be a tailoress. I didn't want to be a tailor. And because it was mostly a male-dominated business, I just wanted to give a little different title to myself other than tailor. Because, a lot of times people walk in, they expect to see some older man with glasses on and maybe a needle in his mouth, and that's just not what I was. So I changed my name to Tailorette.
Oh, wow. Now, when I think about that, and even what you're saying, back then, I feel like that was what some people, the fashion industry maybe was not as inclusive. We still have a long way to go. But like the women who were, and the men who were tailors and tailoresses were like, also, that was part of the fashion community for our community. Did you hear me?
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
No, I was just talking about the connection between tailors and the fashion community from back then.
Yes. Okay, so back years ago, of course, most people had their clothes made. There was not a really big market for clothes. So, there was definitely a connection. Almost the thing about it, Sharon, it was just that mostly men took their sons to tailors and not their daughters. Okay, so women's tailoring was mostly done in the home by what was called a seamstress. Normally someone in the family was a seamstress, or you would go to your local seamstress, but not your tailor. So, that's where the connection was. It's just that back then, women normally made clothes for women and men made clothes for men. But I was taught to do both.
Wow. Okay. I never thought of that. I never made that connection. And so one of the things that's so interesting to me, one of the things that I kind of want people to know, and I try to instill this with my clients, when we go to one of the great things about knowing a tailor, I'm always like, if you are a well-dressed individual, you have to have a tailor in your Rolodex or in your phone.
That's right, absolutely. Everyone should have a tailor in their back pocket, I say. Because actually, what makes your clothes defined to your body is good tailoring. Because, definitely we know that one size does not fit all. So when you go out and if you're buying clothes, that extra added tweak will make your clothes look like custom as opposed to off the rack, so that, you're not in a situation where the clothes are wearing you rather than you wearing the clothes. So it's super important. Everyone should have a tailor or seamstress, whichever their choice is, to make sure that their clothes are tweaked to perfection. It's super important. It makes a difference in how people see you.
It really does. And that's so, because that I'm as an image consultant, that's what I'm constantly talking about, how people see you. And difference between a garment that's just anybody can put that on to it being your own garment. And I tell people a lot of times, like the thing that I tell my clients is that when you're selecting your clothing, quality, cut, and color are the three most important things. And if you invest in good quality, if you need to revise the cut of it a little bit, it's worth it.
So, yes, I agree with you 100%. Quality over quantity all the time. You can do so much more with one great black pair of pants in your wardrobe than whether, as long as they are good quality, than you can with 10 pair of ill-fitting black pants. You need one good quality pair that will take you from day to evening, from casual to formal. So, I see people one time and they have like lots and lots and lots of clothes, because sometimes I do wardrobe edits for people because they just are lost in their own closet. So I would always tell people that buy quality and have it altered to perfection. That's the best thing you can do for your wardrobe.
Do you find that you have a specific age group of clients? Do you find that people who come to the tailor are a specific age demographic?
No, actually, no, Sharon. For example, so your husband, Scotty, right? I know Scotty very well. Scotty was having his clothes tailored when he was 16 or 17 when we started together. coming to tailor back then. So no, it's actually what you taught. You know, people have to be taught that you need to have a good tailor, and that tailoring is a necessary thing to have. So I have people who I have done their prom clothes, and now I'm doing their wedding clothes. So no, it's really not age specific or gender specific. It's just educational. People have to be educated to know that they need to go have their clothes altered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was telling Scotty, and I mentioned to you before. So one day, I was going to the shoe repair, and shout out to Mr. Dukes. He's not there anymore. Down there, he was inside the Reeves Center, and I was, getting some shoes done. At the time, I was working with young people, and I was saying, Mr. Dukes, I was trying to help them learn how to start transitioning into the world of work. And I was like, Mr. Duke, do you ever take on apprentices and that kind of thing? And he was saying, people, he was saying no, because he was being, he used to like to get my goat, I will say. But he was saying, he noticed that as time changed, he felt like people no longer really kept things and fixed things. He felt like people were in this like throwaway.
He's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Here's what I find with that. People who know quality and who have invested in clothes and good shoes, they do fix them. They repair them. They sometimes even restyle them. I have people who have clothes that had pleats in them, had the pleats removed because they know the quality of what they bought. Let's just say back in the day you bought an Oxford suit and it came with pleats. Well, Oxford suits cost a fortune and the fabric never goes bad. So people do come in and have them restyled, those who know quality fabrics. But he's absolutely correct. I believe you're speaking about Mr. Duke. I also had experience with him as well. He's absolutely correct in that, we have kind of a wear it once and throw it away society somehow came on us with this business casual look that came in. So people would just buy pre-fitted clothes, wear them until they fall apart, wash her, and throw them away. So fortunately, we're turning that cycle around now. People are actually dressing back into quality clothes, thank goodness. And learning to appreciate the value of having a quality garment.
Now, when you say quality, that's not to be confused with designer.
Say that again.
I said, and when you say quality, that's not to be confused with designer.
No, not at all. When I say quality, I mean looking at how this garment is actually put together. I think that if you've been wearing, whether you've been wearing quality or not quality, you can look at the inside of a garment and know that it's put together well. Take, for example, the demise of the line pants. Now you can hardly find a pair of pants with a lining in it. Yes. Back in the day, it was unheard of for any woman and mostly any man to buy a garment that didn't have a lining that at least came to the knee. So when I say quality, it's in the details. It's not necessarily in the price, because you can get quality for a low price. It doesn't have to be expensive. You just have to know quality when you see it.
It's funny that you say that about the lining, and I think that that's a good. First of all, that's a great tip, right? Looking at the inside of the garment, the way it is constructed. One of the things that I learned is when you're looking at something that has a pattern, you want to see how the pattern matches up at the seams. If things are all, askew.
That's absolutely correct. Right. If you're buying a plaid skirt, if those plaids aren't lined up, you don't need to buy that skirt. Because anyone, you don't want to show up looking like anything anywhere. So, you want to make sure that stripes and plaids both are lined up if you're going to buy them. That's Absolutely. One of the telltale signs of quality versus non-quality clothing. They don't care about whether it's lined up or not, or lined, period.
Now, here's the funny thing. I was doing some work for a client, a man, and I was looking at some blazers for him. Now, in the high-end shop that I was in, it was a very expensive jacket. It was beautiful. The hand on the fabric was, I mean, just butter. And the gentleman who was helping me was saying that a really well-made jacket doesn't always have a lining.
Absolutely. It does not have a lot. It doesn't need a lot. I mean, the one thing you want to look for is tick stitching on the lapels and things like that. But a lot of times when it comes to quality, less is better. This is what's going to take you through seasons and through different eras of clothing. If you go back and look at back in the day, let's just say back in the day on the 40s and 50s, right now, some of those same clothes can be worn today because they didn't have any bells and whistles on it. It was just a well-made suit of good quality fabric and high-end stitching. That's all that it takes. It does not take a lot of other frills to make it a quality garment. Matter of fact, it's more, the less you put on it, the better the quality.
Mm-hmm. What he told me was linings for men's jackets sometimes are used to hide the flaws on the construction inside the jacket. I was like, So yeah, like that whole looking at the, I mean, I knew that you look at the inside of the garment, but I never thought about unlined. I had never gotten an unlined jacket for a male client before. And so I was like, ooh, I just got schooled on something.
Mm-hmm. So I actually agree and disagree with that. So, you can find clothes that have half linings in them, right? And you'll notice that the seams inside are finished perfectly because that seams are going to show. But actually, if you're putting a lining in a garment, there's really no need. Matter of fact, it's not good if you finish it all professionally with all those serging stitches because then those stitches can show through. When you have the garment clean, sometimes they will press down on that garment and you'll be able to see that stitching, not the actual stitching, but the imprint of it on the outside of the coat. So some things do need to be lined. You don't want every kind of fabric sitting right on your body at all. So some things need to be lined. And so, yes, there are times when lining is put in to hide the inferior workmanship of a garment, but not always.
Okay. So nowadays we're seeing a lot of debate, particularly around more focus on ways that we can clean up the planet, right? And so you're hearing a lot of talk about fast fashion. You're hearing a lot of talk about sustainable fashion, and then you're hearing talk about upcycling. What obviously we kind of know already, like we're not into fast fashion because it's poor quality, poor construction. Every once in a while you may need a little piece just to kind of complete a look, but you want to avoid that being your skeleton of your wardrobe. But what are your thoughts around the upcycle movement and the sustainable fashion?
Yes. Okay. So I'm 100% for upcycling, recycling, reusing, repurposing, all of that. Anything that helps us to save this planet, I'm all for it. I'm all for natural fibers. If you've been following fashion, I know you have. They're using a lot now of 100% sustainable fabric. So like hemp fabric is one. More linens, things like that. Things that are all natural and organic fabrics. So I'm all for that. I mean, I now do a lot of repurposing. There are a lot of people who actually are doing thrift store shopping and repurposing those clothes, even if it's just tearing that garment apart and remaking it into something that they like. What I'm wearing now, this is actually upcycled.
Oh,
Came from a thrift store. Yeah, I got this from a thrift store, and I just altered it to fit me. It was a size 22, and so I just cut it down. So that, I'm not out buying new when I can just buy, something I can just recycle and, help save the planet in any way that I can. So I'm all for that. And so there's so much you can do with that, Sharonda. You can convert a man's coat to a woman's coat. You can cannibalize it. You can make it into whatever you want it to be. So I'm very excited about what people are doing.
What do you mean by cannibalize it?
Sharonda?
What do you mean by cannibalize it?
Oh, so cannibalizing means taking a garment completely apart and making it into something else. So you're just taking it apart for the fabric. Okay? So let's just say, Sharonda, you're in a thrift store or a consignment store, and you see a garment that is 100% pure silk, and you love that piece of fabric. You buy that garment for a low price and have it made into what you want it to be.
Let me tell you how if I wasn't scared to show y'all my closet, I have a coat that is sitting inside my closet right now that I bought from a thrift store on Georgia Avenue, and it was an old school London fog, ankle length, camel color wool coat, and it is gorgeous.
Yep.
And I only bought it for $9.99, but it's too big. I will be coming to see you this week.
It does not have to be too big, Sharonda. We can cut that down to fit you. You can turn it into whatever you want. If you want to keep it as a coat, I've actually taken a Burberry trench coat that a lady found in a thrift store and turned it into a Burberry dress for her.
Nice. Ooh.
Yes.
Very cute.
Yes.
So, and that I noticed that with young people, they are, a little more adventurous and still in that creative phase of taking things and repurposing them and sort of making them new. So I think it's good for older people to hear, like, you can repurpose a garment, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do something kind of like off the cuff with it. You can still stay if you have a more professional style or a more conservative style, you can still repurpose a garment and have it look the way you want it to look.
Absolutely. It is not age specific. You can just do it. I tell people, do whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. You don't have to, I understand these young people are like doing some off the cuff kind of things. They go in and they're doing for example, they're taking neckties. Like, I'm making a skirt out of a group of neckties right now. So that's kind of specific to young people doing that. But, if you're an older person, in my age range, especially, it's fine to go get something and keep it as that same thing, but get it cut down to your size so that it looks good on you.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things that I do with clients is I help them to understand how your body, something will look on your shape. Now, when someone comes to you, do you have those conversations with them, or do you say, you said you want this in a whatever shape? You sure? Okay, I'll make it. Or do you incorporate some of those kinds of conversations with your customers?
Yep. So, part of being a tailoress is having sensitive conversations with people, okay? I have to do it all the time. Especially in the bridal portion of it, I have to tell people a lot of times, if you're very heavy busted, you don't need to be wearing a strapless dress, period. If you are big in the middle, then you don't need to be wearing spandex, form-fitted garments. So I have very difficult, honest, frank conversations with my clients, because it's my reputation on the line. So I don't want you coming into my shop and bringing something in, and I'm sending you out here looking any kind of way when I could have saved that for you by being honest with you, saying, look, this just is not cut for you. It's not age appropriate. There's a lot of things that just aren't for everybody. Like I say all the time, one size does not fit all. It's not for everybody. Every style is not for everyone. So, yep, being honest is a part of being in this business.
I love it. There's other people out here trying to spread the word. Like, you have to, and that goes back to those 3 C's of like cut, quality, and color. Like, if this cut of a suit or this cut of a dress or whatever is not necessarily going to be most flattering for you, let's talk about it, and we can do something else. You can still get the effect you're going for, but let's make it so that it is for you.
Yes, anybody can look good. And when I say that, any body type can look good with the right direction. Like you as a stylist, that's a part of your job as well, is to tell these people that let's dress you in what is going to look good on you, not what you saw looking good on a magazine. Because I can tell you how many people who want to bring me pictures of something that Beyonce has on, and I tell them honestly, if you don't have Beyonce's body, don't expect that dress to look like that on you. It's just not going to.
And Beyonce doesn't have Beyonce's body. Like, no shade to her, but we also have to know that a magazine goes through so many different stages. They take pictures, they edit it, they airbrush. The stylist is tucking and pinning and snatching.
Everything. So no, I tell people all the time, don't come with a picture, an unrealistic expectation of what you're going to look like in a garment that you pulled off the front of Vogue magazine, because you have to compare those things you said, airbrushing and everything else, but you have to compare your body type to that person's body type.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you, first of all, I'm so serious about bringing my coat. And I want you to tell, when I get there, I am all about, I think the piece about buying quality things is because although on the front end, you may spend a little bit of money, but it's the value that you get out of it over time. So when I bring you the coat, tell me, like, just leave it alone. And because it said it was London Fog, I was like, oh, they used to make good coats, but I need you as the professional to be like, yeah, but this may not be the greatest one, or it might not be in the best condition. So, because we know when we go to thrift stores, sometimes you have to be really careful in inspecting the garment before you take it out of there to make sure that it's reworkable. Have you ever had? So people come in.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
People come in, they bring things, and that's another area of like, okay, so this is not really worth it.
Right. And I'm happy to tell you that if you come in there with an H&M garment and it needs $40 worth of work done to it, I will tell you that, the alterations are going to exceed the cost of the garment. So you might want to consider that. That's not to say that you don't need to have it altered, but it's just to say that at the end, when I put these alterations on it, you will have invested $40 in a $15 shirt. So, and the shirt is not going to last that long, or pants. So I do believe that if the cost of the alterations is going to exceed the cost of the garment and it's not a good quality garment, then you need to rethink that. And I tell people that all the time. Before I start the pinning process, I'm eyeballing this garment to say whether it's worth it or not. Man, we can't always say, because sometimes some of these garments have sentimental value to people. And so they want to invest anyway, and I'm fine with that. But I still have to be honest with them and tell them that the cost of the alterations will probably exceed the cost of the garment. So that at least, the expectation is set up front, and you're not, getting a bad Yelp review later about how much you charge for this garment that wasn't worth it.
Yeah. So a lot of like you said, manage expectations. Now, my last question is, you have been in business for how many years have you been in business now?
So I started in 1981, so I've been in here for like 43 years.
In Washington, D.C.?
In Washington, D.C., yep. And pretty much right in the area that I'm in now. I've always been pretty much in Northwest D.C. I've never been in any other part of D.C., always Northwest.
So in addition to seeing fashion trends come and go, you have really been right in the heart of a changing environment, a changing neighborhood, a changing city. How have you, first of all, congratulations on sustaining a business for so long as a Black woman, through some changing of the guard or some changing of sensibilities around clothing. What have you sort of, how have you been, how'd you do this? Like, there's so much to unpack in that thing. Like, what is that, 81, and this is 2020, so that 40 years?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother, show. Sustaining a business for 40 years in Washington, D.C.
Yes. So, of course, clothing is a clothing business is a business that's almost never going to go away. People have to wear clothes. So, in times when times are bad, people get their old clothes fixed. When times are good, they buy new clothes. But I think a part of my success, my ability to stay in this business, is that I've always had, Sharonda, black and white clients from day one. Before DC was the new DC that it is now, when I was on 15th and T, I had just as many white clients, black clients, rich clients, poor clients, that I have now. So I mean, it's pretty much the same. I've always had a mixed race of clients, and so as DC has changed, of course, we're watching DC change. It maybe it's just that I have probably more white clients now than I do African Americans, and that's of course because there's not as many African Americans in the city anymore. But I think a part of being able to sustain my business so long is that I've always had a plethora of different kind of people coming in my shop. And that still remains today. I have young people, old people, black people, white people, you name it. There's a need for tailoring for everybody. And that's from the small, when I say small jobs, Sharon, I mean people who need buttons sewn on to people who need clothes made. I tell people all the time, there's no job that should be too small or too big for your tailor.
Oh, because I bought a shirt that had like probably only 2 buttons on it. It was like, wait, Cheryl. And inside, again, my great aunt was like shaking her head somewhere. Like, I taught this girl how to sew on buttons. I taught this girl how to hem things and how to, when I was little, I used to make dolls, like rag dolls out of socks, and I would sew the hair on and all of that. But now I'm just like, I don't know. I lost my.
The sad thing, Sharon, is that tailoring. When we were in school, when I was coming up, every girl had to take sewing in school. That was just a part of what you did. You could take other things like shop. You could make a birdhouse if you wanted to, but you want to learn how to sew on a button first before you got to that shop class. So I mean, it's just the way things have changed. There's no home economics in school anymore, and so women, men alike are not learning to sew. And actually, there's only one really good program here in the district, period, where you can learn to sew if you want to. So I mean, no judgment on people who can't sew on a button, can't sew up their seam. They just have not been taught it anymore. They just don't teach that anymore.
You are absolutely right, because I sure did have home ec, and I love it. And the funny thing is that our home ec teacher made all of the prom dresses for the girls. So she had a built-in clientele.
Back in the day, your home ec teacher ended up being the person. Like, I went to Wilson High School, the home ec teacher there, she actually made prom dresses for pretty much all the girls who went to the school.
Absolutely. And I bought you know what? So where do you go? Where can you go to learn how to sew? Because I have a sewing machine. Because I was like, I'm going to sit down and I am going to rediscover sewing. That might be something that people can do during the shutdown. Pull out some needle and thread and learn how to sew on the button.
Well, we do that with all the masks that are being made, right? Okay, people have been exploring their sewing capabilities. But there is, of course, G3 Fabric still teaches sewing classes. That's a bit of a hump, though, because it's all the way in Rockville. But there's a young man in the city named Jazz Piper. He has a program right up off of Georgia Avenue, and I will get you the information. I don't know it by heart. But he teaches tailoring, and at your own pace. If you want to come in and just say, look, all I want to learn is how to make a skirt, that's what you're going to learn from him. If you come in and say, I want to make a suit, he's going to teach you that. So this program is free, actually, so I got to get it to you, the information to you. It's a free program, and anybody can learn to sew in DC.
Wow, it's free. Y'all hear that? Free. So,
Cheryl, Department of Recreation sponsors this program, and so the city pays for this gentleman to teach these people how to sew. And a lot of these people, many times people are coming out of incarceration. They need a job, and the one way that you can get a job is to learn how to sew, because you can always not only do it on your own, but cleaners will hire you, or a tailor shop.
Now, how about that? That's really interesting. Learning how to sew. So DC government, he has a grant through DC government teaching people how to sew. And so then you use that as your trade to learn how to repair clothing, and as you get better, you expand your offerings. That's
I mean,
amazing.
if you just sew buttons, honestly, you can make a living in DC. You just need to know a little bit about this business. I mean, there's little teeny, of course, people do crafts and things, learning how to just do crafts, you can do that. I mean, you can make a way. If you can learn to sew, you can make a way for yourself.
That is, you know what? I did not even think about that. I was just thinking about it more so from the standpoint of the fashion aspect, but just how to help people think about how to sustain themselves and embark on a new career, or even take something that they already know how to do and expand it. Like you said, 40 years, there's never a shortage of people needing help with their clothing. That's amazing.
Sharon, I want to tell you just a quick story about a guy who came to my shop years ago. There was a gentleman who wanted to learn how to make exotic dancer clothes. Okay, that's a business, right?
Yes, it is.
He came in and I showed him how to work on this stretchy fabric. He, at that time, was working for the Department of Sanitation. He drove the sanitation truck. And within 4 months, he bought a sewing machine. I kicked him out of my shop. I'm like, you're good enough now to go on your own. And when I tell you, Sharonda, now he's making so much money, he quit his job just on that, learning how to sew that little bit, just stretchy fabric. He's all over the world now making clothes for dancers, not just exotic dancers, but dancers who are in Vegas and in Atlantic City. He's just, he's making so much money now. It's incredible.
You know what? That's amazing to me. And I mean, I could completely see that, because I know somebody who's a makeup artist who does makeup for dancers, and she's making great money. Listen, that's incredible to me. That's and it's, if you take the time to learn it and be diligent and just continue to perfect it, it's something that's obtainable.
Yeah, absolutely. All you need is the desire. That's all you need is a desire, and you can make money in the sewing business. That's all you need is the desire to learn. You don't have to get to, heavy construction part of sewing, just for what you want to do. There's a girl in the city only makes a wrap skirt. That's all she can make, which her business is called It's a Wrap, and she is wrapping up money.
How about that? How about
she
that?
Learned, she learned
That's amazing. That is so amazing. Cheryl, you have to come on another time and just talk about being a woman business owner in Washington, D.C. for the span of time that you have. And like, I'm sure you probably could write a book.
Well, I would love to come back. And I was excited about coming on this time, and I would love to come on again, because there's so much you can talk about in this business, and I'm very big on helping people get into this business. Yeah. Because, no one has to be suffering for money. You can make money in this city all kinds of ways, Sharon. And so my give to the people, young and old, this city, is to tell them how they can do it in this city.
Well, Cheryl, I appreciate you for coming on the show and sharing that. And so my takeaway is, y'all better get out here and learn how to sew some buttons.
I'm about to teach a class. I just want you to know I'm going to do a virtual how to sew on a button properly class very soon.
You know what? Listen, that and like how to hem something, because once that hem drops out your pants, it's not cute. And you don't have to throw your things away. You can just do a quick little sew, and you're back in business. But learn how to do your own basic.
Trick bag to carry with us at all times, Ron. We need our little trick bag, so that's something else I'd like to talk about, is what you need to have in your purse at all times for these fashion emergencies.
What you need to have in your purse? Okay, real quick, what should you have in your purse for fashion emergencies?
Okay, so you should always have safety pins. You should never be without safety pins, ever. Never. You should always have some safety pins hooked together in your purse. You should have hem tape. just, and I know a lot of people don't like hem tape, but in an emergency, hem tape works, okay? You always have hem tape, and this is the sticky type that you should just stick in between the hem of your pants, and it will stay up until you get home, okay? Mm-hmm. So you need to have a needle and thread for those emergencies.
In your purse?
In your purse, a little packet that has a needle and thread, some hem tape, some safety pins, and a little teeny pair of scissors. That's all you need.
There it is. I'm gonna write that down because I do have safety pins almost always, but the other things I don't have.
Put it back for you. Okay, don't worry.
They're in my closet. That's not where they need to be when the emergency goes down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the well-dressed woman should have a little emergency kit in her purse of a needle and thread, hem tape, a tiny pair of scissors, and safety.
Got that?
There it is. You all heard it from Cheryl Lofton. And she knows what she's talking about, or she wouldn't have been doing this long and impeccably, I might add. And so I am so appreciative that you were able to stop by and spend time with us today. You guys, please follow her at Lofton Salon DC. But more than following her on social media, if you have anything that you need tailored, altered, repaired, reconstructed, go and see her. She is at, what's your address, Cheryl?
My address is 719 T Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. If you know where the Howard Theater is, you know where I am. I'm right there in that block. I'm just, just by the Howard Theater. It's easy to find, right across from Cleveland Elementary School.
There you go. There you have it. Well, that is all our time today. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for joining me. Thank you guys for another Sunday of talking about all things beautiful and creative on Art Loves Fashion. Please make sure that you are following me on Instagram at Sharonda-Irving or following me on Facebook at Sharonda Davila-Irving. You can see today's episode on Facebook, or you can go to my YouTube channel and catch today's episode and all the other ones at Sharonda-Irving on YouTube. So I will see you guys next Sunday at 5 o'clock for Art Loves Fashion. Welcome to Art Loves Fashion. I'm your host, Sharonda-Irving. I'm an image consultant, professional developer, art curator and collector, a wife and a mom. This show, Art Loves Fashion, is about, you guessed it, art, love, and fashion. We'll be meeting new people, trying interesting things, and hopefully learning something new. Sounds kind of vague, right? That's because I want you to join me on Sundays at 5 o'clock as we take a journey of all things creative and beautiful with art, loves, fashion.